Well, hey, thanks for joining us as we have another one of our videos that we have been enjoying to put out there for you to watch and gain some knowledge about what we do as a coalition and just the educational pieces that we want to bring to you. And if you've watched any of our other videos, we've been taking time to look at the different dimensions of wellness. As a coalition with Above the Influence, we really want to spend time highlighting and focusing on 8 dimensions of wellness and how they all interplay together and are connected together, because it's really important to us to do everything we can for people to live the best life they possibly can. And one of those dimensions is financial wellness. And what's interesting about, even for myself, that wouldn't have been one that I would have put into this pot of wellness. When I think about wellness, you usually think like mental or physical and that kind of stuff. And I didn't really put financial wellness into that. So today we're going to spend some time talking about financial wellness. And if you haven't checked in with us before, my name is David Condry. I'm the project coordinator with the Above the Influence Coalition. And we're joined with Angie today, who is a prevention specialist with the Area Substance Abuse Council. And she is here we're just gonna have a conversation together about finances and just some different areas of that. But one thing specifically that Angie works on is she works on problem gambling. And she works on that right here in Benton County. So that's why we thought it'd be great to have her as part of this conversation and just spend some time talking together. And hopefully you enjoy this conversation as we just tackle this subject of financial wellness. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
I guess let's just take a moment. I mean, how long have you been working in Benton County?
I've been in Benton County for, let me see, it's almost 2 years, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And that was the time that I joined ASAC. Mm-hmm. So I'm stationed out of Cedar Rapids, but we do provide gambling prevention and substance abuse prevention services here in Benton County.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. But I've been in the field for about 10 years. So.
Okay. Yeah. And this isn't the only county that you work in.
Right. Yep. So I serve Lynn, Benton, and Jones County, but ASAC also has Clinton and Jackson County for prevention services as well.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for joining us, and we look forward to talking through this. So let's just take a moment, and we're going to begin by talking about, well, let's define financial wellness. I think growing up, my attitude towards what does it mean to be financially well is, well, I'll be financially well when I'm rich. Give me if I have a lot of money, I'm going to be financially well. The older I get, of course, I learned that that's not the case. Definitely, financial wellness is when you learn to manage what you have appropriately, right, so that you're meeting the needs of your life.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of how I would look at it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a lot of times, we think in order to be financially well, we have to have everything that we want.
Yeah.
But it's more about really understanding what it is that we need, and not having all those extra, but then still having money to set aside and save and prepare for our future. A little bit of that as well. That would be my definition.
I know we're going to talk a little bit later more about gambling, but even just right here, it just popped into my head, so I just kind of want to put it out there because I know, again, I've wrestled with this at times, but if I fall into this idea of financial wellness is I have a lot of money. Like if I'm living with that mentality, I can see even in my own life, that's kind of what prompts you sometimes to even buy the lottery ticket. It's kind of like, oh man, it'd be nice to have some more money. And then I've had those moments where it's like, the big, pot out there for Powerball or something. So then there's like this prompting of like, I really want to be financially well. Like there's this idea, I don't think that, but you're like, man, it'd be nice to have some more money. And then that kind of prompts me to like kind of not have to do the work, honestly. It's like, I just want the windfall.
Yes, so absolutely. So the truth of the matter is that in very rare cases, somebody does win those, but most people are going to lose. And when jackpots get high, or when there's a hope that there's going to be some huge return on an investment, that's when we see people spending a lot more than what they normally would, or money that they don't have to spend on that sort of, or that form of entertainment.
So I guess when I'm thinking about this, a good starting point for financial wellness to start moving in that direction is it starts with being satisfied in some ways of maybe what I already have. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to build, more, or trying to find a better job with higher pay. There's nothing wrong with that. but I think a lot of this starts with kind of a satisfaction of like where I'm at and starting
Right.
there, you
Yeah.
know.
And I mean, that's a hard concept to grasp because if you look at any other areas, whether it's physical wellness or even employment or just a career, we are always, our society is so, we just have that mentality. We can do better. We could be better. We can do more. We can just be better. We're always trying to improve ourselves. But I think when it comes to, finances, we really do have to understand there is what you need and then there's that extra on top. And it is hard to just be satisfied with what it is that you need and what it is that you can afford sometimes when you're always wanting to be better.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really tricky, I guess, when you put credit cards and start accumulating debt in order to have those extra sort of things. And
when you mentioned debt, I laughed because I was just out for dinner with my folks and my wife, and we were sitting there talking and kind of reminiscing of life. And I don't know why we got on this topic. It wasn't about finances, but the joke was we were laughing because my wife made a comment about my parents, how when we first got together, my parents would always make comments like, we ain't got no money. We ain't got no money. But then the joke was they were always saying we have no money, but then the next day it's like they went and bought another car. And my dad, when I said that to him while we were eating, I was like, yeah, but what about how you always use this? He looks at me, he's like, you don't need money to go buy a car.
no,
He's
you
like,
don't.
I just go, you go in debt, so that when you talk about debt, it's so easy to replace need and want.
Right.
And debt makes that so much easier. Like,
Yeah, and so you're absolutely right. You could walk in anywhere and get a car. You can walk into a store if you have fairly decent credit or maybe even no credit at all and get a credit card, a store credit card that they will sign you up on the spot and you can buy all of the things that you want, the TVs, the computers, the luxuries. But I think that, it's important to look at, yes, I can walk in and buy a brand new car, but do I need a brand new car? Is that a need? What can I realistically afford when it comes to a car payment? And what are my abilities at this point in time? Yeah. But yeah, you don't need money to buy a car.
No,
you don't need money to buy much of anything, to be honest.
No. And you mentioned stores, they're really great. I mean, I think of anytime we used to walk into, like, one example is, a clothing store, and they always ask you when you're checking out, hey, do you have our card? And you kind of like, well, no. And the first thing I thought, hey, sign up and you'll get 15% off today.
Yeah.
Or you get $50 off it's easy to fall in that trap, especially if you're spending. I mean, I've had those moments, I'm spending $100 and you're offering me 50 off. In that moment, it's like, well, yeah, why not?
Yep.
So, yeah.
It is tempting, and I think that you kind of have to understand your own personal boundaries. Am I responsible enough to have this card, pay off my balance, and then use it when I need things? And then you have to consider, too, if you're opening up all of those lines of credit, what that's going to do if you're closing them or carrying that debt long term. So.
Well, that speaks a lot to then what, you said it without really saying it. It's that personal responsibility, right? Like, you have to know where you're at and your abilities, and so there's that work again, right? I chuckle whenever we have conversations. Like I said, I have all these memories. It's just, I kind of I still remember the first time I got a checking account. I was probably 14 at the time, like, hey, I got my own checking account. Never taught finances. Nobody ever taught me finances. I was one of those that fell into I got checks. I got a check, so a 14-year-old kid, I remember I had my paper out. That was with the money that was going in. And it's like, I can walk in here and write a check. Here you go. Cause I want that. And that catches up to you.
I mean, you bring up a really interesting conversation that I've had a couple of times about currency, just currency in general. And I think that, and I will be the first one to admit, my daughter is going to be 15 soon. And she doesn't have the same concept of money that I had when I was her age, because I saw my dad go to work every morning, and then the paycheck would come in the mailbox every Friday, and he would get it, and we'd go drive to the bank and cash it, and he'd get the money like cash, and that's what we would use at places. And my daughter has kind of separated that as you work, you get the paycheck, you cash it, and that's what you use to buy your things. And in the grand scheme of things, she understands that now. She's 15, but you lose a lot of that in the early years when children aren't seeing those transactions or like figuring out or just seeing that as a model that this is how it works. And I remember, a couple of times when she was little, she would say, just use your card, just use your card, because they're not understanding, well, I do have a card, but it's actually a bank card. And if we don't have the money in there to buy that, we can't have that. So they lose that. And that's an important life lesson, I feel, that our younger generation isn't getting.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. We do the same thing with our girls. I mean, that we've had those moments like, you have money, you got a card, and they're even that way. And we follow the envelope system. I mean, we have envelopes and we put cash into it. So my wife carries around, and so we got it all laid out, budgeted out. And we'll get into budgets here in a little bit, but it's good for us because it keeps you in check, because it's so easy to swipe.
It is, yeah.
But the other thing is it hurts more having to hand over that.
It does.
There's a personal investment of like, I'm going to hand you, like opening that, there's times you open that envelope and it's like, oh, there's the last 20. Like, you just got to look at it like, that's the last 20,
Yes.
And then you have the conversation in your head. You're like, how long until we put more money in the envelope? And now you're trying to reason. Do I need this? Do I not need this? Because it hurts to hand that bill over.
I love that. So talk a little bit more. So you have envelopes for each thing that you use money on every month. And
we so the way we do it is we have identified the areas of our budget, our life, that makes more sense to pay with cash.
Okay.
So this would be things like gas, clothing, food, so groceries, entertainment. Then we have like a miscellaneous account. We even do it for Christmas. So we have a Christmas envelope. So every month there's a dollar amount that gets taken out and that goes into the Christmas envelope, so that we have those funds when Christmas comes. Do it for birthdays. As my girls have gotten older, we added a birthday envelope because it's like, as they started getting invited to birthday parties, it's like, oh, we got to go buy another gift.
Right.
So it's like, so we created an envelope that, so it's budgeted out every pay period. We know the exact dollar amount that's pulled. My wife will go, and as soon as the check's deposited, direct deposit, she will go get that amount out, and then she divvies it out into the envelopes. And then that is what we use. Is anything that falls into those categories is paid through cash. Yeah. The only thing that we don't pay with cash would be things like just bills. So house payment, utilities, car payment, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, my wife, we're probably different than a lot of people because we don't like to do the automatic payments either.
Yes.
My wife is very much, I will write the check. I will send the check because it forces us, she takes care of the books. It forces her to be like, then I know I paid it. I have the physical, like,
right.
I can prove I paid it. And it allows her to keep track of where we're at. Because the other thing we do, because since we pull out cash, we live by a zero balance mentality towards our budget. So the way our budget is done, we budget it down to zero. Like, this is how much is coming in,
right.
And we budget it every penny, so that every month it's like there's not this excess left over. Like,
Yeah.
So savings is even included in that. It's like this much is going into savings. This much is, so.
It's a really great idea.
That's what we do.
Yeah, I like that. I do something that's similar, definitely not that complex, but I do have different. So I don't know if your bank has it. My bank has the progress bar where it shows how much you want to spend this month, and it kind of gives you notifications when you're getting close or you've went over your limit, maybe on entertainment or out to eat, those sorts of things. But that's a really great idea.
One of the reasons we do it all, so when that got brought up because of kids, we did that for our kids too. Our kids, they have three they have four now. Our kids, they get their allowance. After they do their chores, they get their allowance. Our kids, we're also trying to teach them, this kind of system. So the envelopes that they have are a savings envelope. They have a spending envelope. Because we go to church, they also have a tithing envelope. And then now they have a vacation envelope.
Ooh.
So when they get their allowance, what I do is we give it to them all in ones. I put the ones out on the table. They get $10 every allowance. The $10 is put out, and we follow, our family. So again, as I say this, I'm not saying this is like every family has to do this, but we live by a principle of 10% at least 10% in savings, at least 10% in tithing, and then they can decide the rest. So my girls are at least $1 will go into savings, at least $1 will go into the tithing one, and then they can decide what they want in spending and then what they want in vacation. What I love about doing this is just from a parent perspective. My kids always blow my mind because with money I've always been very selfish. My daughters, I'll tell them every time, at least $1, right? Just $1 has to go into the tithing one as an example, because that's money they're giving back to the church.
Yeah.
Every time my daughters will never put just $1. They're always putting like $3 to $4 and in that, and then they will divvy out so we're trying to instill that in them again, because then it gets them excited, right? Because then they can see how they're, every time they're like, well, let me count my savings. So then they'll count it out, and
Yeah.
So, and it's been fun because we took a family vacation last year, and they got to take their vacation money,
and
they had their money, and they got to go into the stores, and we told them, you can buy whatever you want. It's your money,
right?
So they got that.
So you have two girls,
Yes.
and one of them's older. Do you see the little one kind of following in the footsteps of her older sister as far as what her older sister does, or is it?
No.
Oh, that's
no.
interesting. Okay.
They approach money completely different. This is again, as we talk about financial wellness, that's what's interesting, because there's no like cookie cutter, like everybody's personalities are different. And so my oldest, our oldest is they both, like I said, usually put about $2 to $3 into the tithing, and kind of the same with savings. But my oldest, she's the saver. Like she'll put money in spending, but she hardly ever spends it. So she's got like, like we've been doing this for a few years.
Wow.
So she's got, it's all ones mostly, but it looks like, she's got it. We actually did just to make it kind of funny, we did a scavenger hunt for her school, a virtual scavenger hunt. One of the things was to take a picture of something that starts with M. So I was like, hey, money. So they ran to their rooms, and it's real funny because the picture was my youngest had like a little fan of money, and then here's my oldest with this like big wad of just like she's fanned it out. And as I'm taking the picture, I'm like, that's gonna look kind of like, it just kind of looked like arrogant, like this big fan of money. It was probably $50, but still, it's all But anyways, my youngest is, as soon as she has money, she wants to spend it.
She's a spender,
As soon as she has it, she wants to spend it. So I appreciate us doing this, because we'll tell her many times, how much do I have? You ain't got enough. Okay. So it's like, we're not just going to buy it for you.
Yes.
So she's hopefully learning this, oh, well, you'll just buy it for me. It's like, no, you don't have enough. That's why you have a savings.
Right.
If you want something big, save for it, and then you can go buy it.
And do they have goals?
Yeah, not recently, since vacations have always, so when we did our big family vacation last year, that was the goal. Like almost everything got funneled into,
Yeah.
And the reason is because where we were going, they were excited and they knew they wanted to be able to buy stuff. So that was their goal. They didn't for a while, but now we're back into it because we have another family vacation planned, hopefully for a year from now. So we're planning for it. So that's why we started back up their vacation envelope, because like, hey girls, we're gonna go on this vacation, hopefully. Let's get ready.
Okay.
So they're kind of like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Let's start planning.
Well, that is a wonderful thing that you're doing, and I wish I probably would have done more with that with my daughter when she was younger. But she's actually a lot. As financially speaking, she has a pretty good head on her shoulder, and I think that she makes good decisions with the money that she does have. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think we can kind of keep that conversation going, because one of the reasons that we started doing this for my wife and I is because I did not make good financial decisions for a lot of my life. I've always been good with budgeting money. I've never been good at practical, like I'm the guy that's like sometimes you just get the whim, like I'm gonna go spend some money,
If
like
you have
I
it.
got it, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
spend some money. So I did that for a lot. So my wife and I we're still digging ourselves out of holes that we put ourselves in. Our goal is we are striving for debt free.
Mm-hmm.
At least if we can get there, like just our house, but trying to we only have the house. Um, so I say that because financial wellness, I don't think a lot of people understand unless they really stop and think about it, how much when your finances are out of whack, the impact it has on you in like every other
And
area
every
of
other.
life.
Yeah.
There's an impact, emotional and your mental and your, even I say social, because if I'm not controlling my money, and then even a social aspect where friends will be like, if you got friends that are always able to go out and do stuff, and you're like,
Right.
well, I can't.
Yes.
That's because,
Yeah.
I've dug myself in this hole that I don't have the money. So I guess, that's something we can kind of talk a little bit about is, like especially the mental side of things and
I
how that
think
works.
it's difficult to say, one way or the other, that the chicken come first or the egg. But I think that, yeah, when any area of your life, whether it's physical, spiritual, mental health, if there's an issue that's going on, it's kind of a piggyback thing, and money is a necessary thing to have in life. It's a tool. It helps us to provide for our families and to provide our basic necessities. I mean, we need money. And so if you don't have it, it can, lead to other things, or it can exasperate what might already be a problem in your life. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Would you say with the work that is done at ASAC, especially when people hear ASAC, of course, Area Substance Abuse Council, and the work that you do, because you're kind of linked with both the substance side of things, but also with the gambling you do, which is a financial aspect of stuff. I mean, is there thoughts that you have in kind of that link of how sometimes finances and the mental health, but the substance side of things? I mean, how does that get played out?
Right. Well, so we're at an interesting time, I think, in the field of problem gambling and disordered gambling. I think that there's still a lot of people that might not understand that it is the same as a substance use disorder. They're now classified in our manual as the same thing. We use the same prevention frameworks when we're doing gambling prevention, and it's treated much the same way as well. And so there is that. You do see substance abuse and gambling co-occurring quite often, and also with mental health. Anxiety and depression are some major ones. But they all go together. Somebody who has a substance use disorder is more likely to have experienced problems with gambling, and it goes the other way around too. Somebody who may be a problem gambler may also start experiencing problems with substance abuse, and those things use money. You use money, you go through money, and so it can impact all areas of somebody's life if they're not kind of monitoring their behavior and being responsible when they're gambling or when they're using alcohol.
Okay. So you just mentioned that, and a lot of people might not be aware of that. Gambling disorder has now. I mean, they've put it in that category,
Right.
where I think gambling is, and I think this is true of people. Sometimes even looking at people with a substance disorder is, we can if it's something that you don't struggle with, it's really easy to look at and just like, well, just knock it off,
Right.
knock it off, So I guess maybe that's. I guess my thoughts is there more to expand on that, just for anybody that maybe wasn't aware of, why did they say now it's a disorder? Like, why have they made the decision to say gambling is a disorder? Like, what are the criteria, I guess, that they look for to say, well, okay, that's not just a behavior thing where you can just turn it off or on, but we're going to now look at it as a disorder like it is.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of research that has been done in the past 20 years on gambling. It used to be listed in the category with compulsive disorders, so like pyromania and those sorts of things. And what we found is that through research is that it actually is so similar to substance use disorder, the way that it impacts the brain, and the way that the physical and mental reaction that somebody feels when they are gambling is much the same as somebody who gets a high off of using a drug.
Okay.
And their body actually becomes, they develop a tolerance to it. So they need to maybe increase the amount of time or the amount of money that they're spending or how large their bets are. And so it follows the same trajectory, and a lot of the therapeutic methods to help treat it are exactly the same as substance use disorder. So it's now been reclassified as that. And one thing that we do see is that it impacts the same areas of the brain as somebody who is using stimulants. And so I don't know, it's just an interesting perspective to look at it that way. If you're thinking about it, you know, for somebody on the outside, why don't you just stop? Well, it's because their body has actually become tolerant to it. It needs it. It's more of a, it's not necessarily I need money anymore. It's more of I enjoy the act of gambling and the feeling that I get when I do experience that win.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, as a person, I don't, by no means do I gamble a lot. You know, I think I maybe have gone to a casino once every 2 years for like a little few, you know, an hour or so. But even in that little bit, it's not just the high of the win. It's the anticipation of a potential win.
Right.
You know, so there's
absolutely
the thrill of, you know, just take a, you know, the slot machine, you know, there's the thrill of pulling it. There's the thrill of watching it. There's the, you know, like the, you know, so it's the same with, I even think of, you know, buy the Powerball ticket, right? It's the thrill of not just the win, it's the thrill of looking the number up and like in your brain, you're like, what am I going to do with all the money that I'm going to win? And, you know, how's my life going to change? You know, so in some ways, I'm not trying to compare the two in this way, but as you were sharing that, I'm thinking, you know, substance abuse disorders are horrible, you know, because of like your body and the tolerance and the need for it, right? In some ways, as you were sharing that, I was thinking of just gambling, how it can almost be even worse because when, you know, an addiction, and I've had my addictions in the past, I sought it, but I knew what I was going to get out of it, right? Like, you know, if I was drinking, it's like I knew what the goal was, you know. I wasn't doing it because I was looking for like, I almost feel like gambling can kind of suck you into a false hope.
Yes.
Like a excitement of false hope. You know, substances I don't think really do that. It's more of the I need this, I'm addicted, I need this. It's something I need, my body is withdrawal, and I want that. So I'm not saying there's not that desire, but I guess in my mind I think about the times that I've gambled. You do get sucked into like the dream state of like, oh, what's it gonna be like, and you know. Yeah,
absolutely. So even having those little wins, let's say somebody is at the casino and they're playing slot machines, those little wins. Say you bet $1 and you win $5. Those sorts of wins that lead up to the larger win, if somebody continues to play, they're hoping they're going to win a jackpot of some sort, are what keep them there. It kind of holds them over. But, you know, a lot of times they say that a person who has a big win early on when they start gambling for the first time, or you know, early when they're younger, they are so much more likely to develop a problem because they have an unrealistic idea of how often those big wins occur. And I mean, it would be exciting, right? It would give a rush. I've never won anything ever. But I mean, I could imagine if I walked into a casino with a $5 bill and I walked out with 10 grand, I mean, that would blow my mind. I have to work hard for my money. So if somebody has that when they start gambling, it's always chasing that rush. And we do see individuals that are seeking help for their gambling problems say that over and over again. I just wanted to feel that feeling. And speaking of, and this will kind of maybe help support that idea, we have a self-exclusion program here in the state of Iowa. So somebody who is experiencing problems can go in and ban themselves from coming to the casino. And it is interesting that every year money and jackpots go unclaimed. And why do you think that would be?
I'm drawing a blank.
So people who self-exclude themselves from the casino aren't allowed to win at that casino.
Uh-huh.
They're technically not allowed to be there,
Okay.
but sometimes they go in seeking that rush. They get it and they leave
And they can't. Oh, okay, that makes.
because they can't cash it out. So a lot of times people say it's about the money, but you should see the amount of money the state has every year and that goes into the general fund to help, our programming and stuff, that's left over by individuals that still continue to gamble even though they can't win.
Wow, that's interesting.
So it's definitely not about the money. It's about the feeling that they get from that win.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Well, and another thought that pops in my head is just the connection of you think about the other areas of wellness. It's what you just said, but it's also if you get used to being in a certain environment and a certain, that social connection, like like you're accepted. It falls into a lot of the same things that sometimes you can get sucked into with substance disorders. Is I'm accepted here, or I feel comfortable here, or
the dealers know me, or I get good treatment, or I feel important when I'm here. And so that can go both ways. I think that we see that people do feel that they have a social group within the people that they spend time with if they are gambling, but we also see a lot of individuals gamble because they don't have that social group, and so that's something to kind of keep in mind too. We see that a lot with our elderly populations, where they've lost their ability to maybe do activities that they used to enjoy, or to maybe help them to cope with the loss of loved ones. And it's easy for them to get sucked in because they do get treated like royalty at a casino. They will help somebody out in that situation to get them wherever it is they want to go.
Wow. I mean, as we're again, just the thoughts that keep popping in my head is even, how finances and money in a gambling context, but just as I'm sitting here, while you wouldn't, in my brain, I'm not going to say it's gambling, but it's how money, we can just fall into traps of wanting money to be the thing that's going to fix problems.
Right.
Like I'm down, so I'm going to go shopping and spend a bunch of money because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good having the new outfit. Yeah. But unfortunately, many times that's a very fleeting thing. It's no different than a substance disorder of I'm feeling it, I need something to kick it back up, but that's going to go away. And
it will, and you're right about that. And so I think that, it's also important to consider, if this isn't something I can afford, how is it going to help me after that initial enjoyment is gone? Because it, most likely is just going to make situations a lot less desirable than they weren't to begin with.
So it kind of fits into, one of the things that as we were kind of talking about what we would, want to go back and forth with is, it goes back to when we were saying at the beginning, taking personal responsibility, almost having a goal or a plan, that would be the case. Financial wellness, but if you're a person that struggles with a gambling disorder, I guess a good place to kind of start is, what are my goals that I'm going to strive for? Like the example I would give for myself is, when it comes to finances, I used to be the guy again that's like, man, I want to go spend some money. Like I want toys, I want things that I don't need, but I just want them because they make me feel good that I have them. It's funny, as I've changed and grown, and intentionally done things with money. Like we're looking, because of having a plan, like we're able to take a chunk of money to go, hopefully here soon, pay off our last car, our van. Nice. Like I'm getting excited about that. Like I'm getting high off of, like, I don't have to make that payment anymore.
You own it.
Yeah, it's mine. So it's interesting how I share that because as I'm thinking, I'm still getting, maybe if you want to call it that rush of some, like I still feel the same, but it's channeled into a more responsible way. Like I have a rush on the idea of, I can't wait to pay that thing off. Like there's a rush there. It's almost, to me, that's better than going buying the toy that I don't really need, because it's like, it's free. I'm done. Like I'm not chained to that anymore.
Right.
So as you were sharing that, I'm just kind of thinking about how easy it is to fall into a temptation of, one, using money as, I want to feel good, and letting that almost take control of you. But at the same time, if you do it right, you can still get that same like satisfaction of like, like I'm accomplishing something. Like this is awesome.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's,
And I like that. So,
yeah.
just setting realistic goals and appropriate goals.
Yeah.
And, I do want to say too is that I think that for most people, they wouldn't have experienced any problems with gambling if they were to partake in it. So it's not necessarily like an evil,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a way to set money aside for entertainment purposes and enjoy those things that we want to enjoy. Life wouldn't be fun if we never got to do anything exciting. So
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is a way to do that, or like saving for a vacation,
Yeah.
or something like that. So
Yeah.
there is a way to do that responsibly as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So two questions that kind of came to mind that to speak into. Let's say somebody's watching and they're kind of somebody that's thinking, kind of that back and forth. Do I have an issue with gambling in my life, or you always kind of go back and forth. Do I or don't I? I guess my question would be, can you speak into maybe somebody that is kind of watching, or if they know somebody in their family, like what are some like, hey, I don't want to say they're like generalized questions, but is there the warning signs, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So
what do you
there
look for?
definitely is. I think that well, first of all, gambling has always been called the hidden addiction because it doesn't it's not often that somebody will outwardly show the same signs and symptoms as somebody who's using a substance. So a lot of times it's hard to detect whether or not somebody has a problem with gambling. And one of the major reasons is that we as a society just don't talk about our finances.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a taboo topic. I don't say, hey, David, did you get all your bills paid this month?
Yeah.
How's your credit card debt?
Yeah.
We don't have those conversations with our friends, and maybe not even our family. I still don't ask my sister or, my other close family members about their financial situations. But just maybe recognizing things that might be a little bit different about that person. Are they covering up or lying about what it is that they're doing? Are they thinking about for example, like somebody who might have a problem with sports betting, are they thinking about it? Are they preoccupied with it all the time? Do they think that they can always win, or they have some amazing talent? Are they balancing it with other things in their life? So everybody should have multiple hobbies, not just one. And it's important, to look at all of the areas of wellness, and are they balanced in those areas as well?
Okay.
Maybe if they're denied credit. So a spouse, if they're denied credit, or you're noticing things that maybe they want to take control of the finances all of a sudden, is that for a reason? So there are warning signs that are out there if somebody has a problem or is close to somebody who may have a problem.
Yeah. So the next question would be kind of resources. So top of your head, does ASAC have stuff on the website? I don't know what's there, or where could somebody go to maybe research a little bit more?
Sure. So I think that the Your Life Iowa is on there. The link to their website is on our website, but it's yourlifeiowa.org. It's through the Iowa Department of Public Health, which is our funding agency for problem gambling prevention services. But they have a plethora of different resources out there. You can do over the internet chat. You can now even do text to speak with a counselor, or you can call in. And there's all kinds of information. I think one of the most important things, well, there are several things, but I think that having a plan when it comes to your finances. So sitting down and looking at what is it that I have, what is it that I need, and where do I want to be in the future, and really kind of just creating that plan. A lot of different workplaces now have EAPs. And EAPs are really good at helping you with those sorts of things. I myself have done that before in the past, spoken with a financial advisor through EAP programs to kind of help me to create a plan, like this is where I'm at and this is where I want to be. And they help you to kind of look at all of your assets and all of your income and lay out a good plan. So starting there so that you don't fall into that trap of, a get rich quick type of a mentality.
And before I forget, anybody that's watching, we will include at the end of the video any resources So we'll have ASAC's website and Your Life Iowa, and we'll include that so people can access that. I love the idea of the plan. It's kind of I've heard people say this before, have your money work for you,
Yeah.
not you work for your money, so, it's kind of like, money is not evil. Sometimes we can fall into that trap of thinking it's the money's, it's not, like you said, I think earlier, it's a tool, it's a resource. It's something that we use, but you have to be the one to know how to use it,
Right.
know what its function is and all that. As you were saying that also, I would say, the resources that we can reach out to, I think you're completely right. We don't talk about money, right? That's it's you hear people say there's like 3 things you never talk about, right? Money, religion, and politics. It's like, those are the things you just don't, but those are 3 of the most important things that we should
Absolutely.
talk about. Like, those are things that, like, if they're extremely important to us, so when you said that about help, it's also, one of the ways I've learned and grown is looking at people that I think are doing better than I am, and asking, or like seeking knowledge. Like, hey, I'm going to ask you to speak into me. I'm not going to pretend I know everything,
Right.
One of mine, for myself, I go back to our conversation of the envelopes. That actually came from Dave Ramsey. That's somebody that we follow. That's where it all comes from. And I remember very vividly going through that coursework that he had the first time, and just sitting there like, oh, like, I don't like this.
Where do you start? Or
yeah, but then the power of that was we were in that class with other people, so then you heard from other people,
right?
Like, hey, this is possible, and we did this, and that's why I just when you talked about using those resources, sometimes the resource might be the person that's right in front of you that's doing it well, and you could just, hey, help me. I don't know how to make a budget. Help me. I've had several people in my life, family and in church, and just people that know we budget, and they'll be like, would you help me with my budget? Like, would you do this for me? So we'll sit down and, it's like, I'm not telling you what to do, but this is what I would do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's good.
To add to that is, so earlier you were mentioning that your wife doesn't like to do the automatic payments.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you an interesting situation that happened with me when and this has been a few years back, but when I was going through my finances with a financial planner, we were looking at all of my bills and like where my money was going every month. And when we looked at our internet bill, which I had coming out of my bank account just on a regular basis, every single month there was a $35 charge for renting a modem, which I never had ever started renting from them to begin with because I did have my own. So they had been charging me for years, not only for the rental, but also for the initial couple hundred of dollars that it costs for that. And here the whole time, I just thought that's how much my internet bill was because you don't see your bills if you're doing it online. And so I do kind of make it a point now to kind of, pay more attention to those things. Where is my money actually going? Do I actually need this high speed, and how much is that going to save me? And if you do need it, then okay, then look at other areas. But I mean, that's just one example. I think a lot of times we might feel like we don't have enough to cover our necessities, but really look at what it is. Look at everything. Where is your money going, and how is it being spent?
I think that's great because, and I think that's true of every aspect of your money. Is my wife and I remember the first time we actually tracked how much money we were spending every month to go out to eat. And you kind of have that gut, like, oh,
that much,
like, ouch, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe, or, I think that's, and I think going back to our conversation of gambling, if a person, it's hard to face these realities, but if you sat down and really looked, this is how much money is flowing out. One of the best analogies, and this is another Dave Ramsey thing, but the example he gave, he said, listen, he basically sat there and he says, do you realize how much money is in your life in a 10-year period? And, he just gave the example, if you make, $100,000 a year, just that nice flat number, and that's not true for a lot of people, but that's where he was. He's like, $100,000. He's like, do you realize in 10 years, $1 million is floating through your hands?
Yeah.
$1 million,
okay.
Right? And so his analogy was this. He said, listen, if you had $1 million and you were going to build a house, he said, chances are you're not just going to go up to somebody and say, here's my $1 million, just go do whatever. He's like, you're going to sit there and say, you're going to nitpick
Right.
every
Yes.
detail. You're going to be like, I want the bathroom to look like this. I want the cupboards to look like this. I'm going to show up every day to make sure that the progress is going the way it goes, because I'm not just going to give you this money and then just let you do whatever with it. And his analogy was, that's the same mentality we need to have towards money, like that's flowing out of us, is if you have a plan and this is the goal, you're going to be a lot more nitpicky about where it's flowing, because you're gonna control where that goes, because you're not just because you're gonna, when you realize that's how much money is flowing through my hands. That was the same thing for me. I remember, I used to smoke when I was 18 years old, 19. I think I quit when I was about 20. One of the things that really helped me quit, and I've never gone back, and I've never wanted to, especially as prices go up, as I sat down and figured out how much I was spending a month. And I remember just looking at that like, dang, like I could be doing some cool stuff with that money.
Right.
But instead, I'm literally burning it. It's like that helped me. Not trying to make it less for anybody else, but that made me stop and go, well, that's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I think that's an awesome thing of just like, have that plan, and you pay attention who's taking out of you. I mean, if I was to try to reach into your wallet and take money, you're going to slap me,
Right.
So pay attention to.
I wouldn't slap you.
Well, you wouldn't let me, at least, but,
Right.
but that's the thing is, our bills, they're always going to try to take away money from us.
Yes.
And we have the power to be like, I don't know, that's my money.
And I've never had anybody come back and say, "Oh, we're so sorry, we overcharged you." So you really have to be careful and do that yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Take charge of that.
Take ownership, and it's yours. So it's kind of that empowerment piece, right? With all of this, if you're suffering with an addiction disorder of any kind, that disorder, I get it's hard. We're not making light of it. But at the same time, I think we need to speak more empowerment into people. Like, hey, there's people that can help you. There's resources. There's things you can do. It doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
I think that's the message is we can all do better.
Yeah. And even if it's small steps, in the beginning, maybe paying, focusing on one thing to pay down and get rid of. And that's one less worry. So it doesn't have to be an all at once, everything overnight will be great. But
now you're speaking that Dave Ramsey stuff. That's his thing again. Like, start with the smallest bill and then snowball it. Right. And then pay the next one and pay the next one and pay the next one. So as we kind of wrap this up, I mean, is there anything additional? I mean, I want us to make sure we highlight anything else that, it's been a great conversation. But I want to make sure that if we have anything else that we want to highlight.
I really can't think of any.
Good. Awesome. Well, again, thanks for joining us. That's been awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Again, here at the end of the video, we'll have some resources put there. And I encourage you to just take a moment and look at them. And if not for yourself, look at them for maybe other loved ones that you know. I mean, here's the thing. I will add this because we talked about it just a little bit before we started the video is these are, for a lot of people, it's kind of difficult times. A lot of the stuff that's going on in our own country and our world has caused people to be in difficult situations, maybe of loss of job or income, or just not as much income coming in, or just the cost of things going up, whatever it is. There's just a lot of us. And sometimes I think like we can feel trapped, like what can I do? And I think that would just be a message to end with is no matter how difficult the situation seems, we're not trying to make light of that by any means, but it goes back to, again, just find the smallest step. And part of that is look at the resources that you have. Ask people, look for help. I mean, there's help that we can get. And I think that's the truth with a lot of wellness issues, not just financial, but mental and physical. Sometimes I think we fall into the trap, I'm going to fix it myself. And that's one of the things is us as a coalition, we want to get out there. Nobody's on their own, sometimes you need people to help you to learn,
Right.
Go back to physical wellness, learn how to eat right, learn how to, properly exercise, mental health. You're not on your own. So it's the same with financial. So as we end, that's just the message we want to leave us with is like any other area of wellness, rely on other people, resources, take small steps, have a plan, get excited about what's possible, and just start doing it. It's kind of the thing. Just start doing it. Those small steps will get you somewhere eventually that you'll see those outcomes that you want. So thanks for watching, and we hope you have a good rest of the day.